Hello, so in this video, I'm going to be talking about ancient mythology, so ancient Greek, Roman, and Egyptian mythology, and go over some of the gods from there and the differences between Greek and Roman gods. So I hope you enjoy the video. Okay, so now we're gonna start with an overview of Greek mythology. So probably the best place to start would be the 12 Olympians. Traditionally, there are 12, but I'm also including Hades because he's a very important god, even though he's not actually an Olympian for reasons that I will discuss later. So the 12 Olympians are Zeus, Poseidon, Hera, Aphrodite, Athena, Artemis, Apollo, Ares, Demeter, Hephaestus, Hermes, and either Hestia or Dionysus. So to start with, let's go over Zeus. Zeus is the king of the gods and is usually portrayed as a very arrogant and powerful god. So he is the son of Kronos, who was the king of the Titans, and a famous story about him is how he defeated Kronos. So basically, his father Kronos actually ate all of his other children, and the way that Zeus survived getting eaten or didn't get eaten is that his mother gave his father Kronos a rock instead of giving him the baby Zeus. And so Zeus was able to grow up and fed his father a mixture of mustard and another liquid, which caused him to puke out his other siblings who had been alive in his stomach because they were immortal gods. So basically, afterwards, they ended up chopping up Kronos and banished him into Tartarus, which is the deepest part of the underworld. Okay, now I want to talk about Poseidon. Poseidon is the brother of Zeus and one of the big three gods, which is Hades, Poseidon, and Zeus, the sons of Kronos, and that's why they are called the big three gods, and they are also the most powerful gods. So Poseidon is the god of the sea, and a famous story about him is how him and Athena competed to become the patron god or goddess of Athens. So Poseidon gave a saltwater spring and Athena gave an olive tree, and she actually won and became their patron goddess. Okay, so now I want to talk about Hades. Hades is the brother of Zeus and Poseidon and is the last of the big three gods. Earlier I mentioned that he's not actually an Olympian, and this is because he rules over the underworld, which is a separate region, and thus he is not an Olympian. So a famous story is that he actually kidnapped his wife Persephone, and she fell in love with him, and so she ate 6 pomegranate seeds, which forced her to stay in the underworld for 6 months a year. Okay, so the next Olympian god is Hera. Hera is the wife of Zeus, and she is the goddess of marriage. So one of the famous stories about her is that when the mother of Apollo and Artemis was about to give birth, she cursed her so that she would not be able to give birth on any land. And so their mother, Leto, had to give birth on a floating island. Next is Aphrodite. So Aphrodite is the goddess of love, and she is married to Hephaestus, the god of blacksmiths. So a story about her is that she was actually born from the remains of Uranus, who was Kronos' father that he defeated. So after his remains were thrown into the sea, they formed a foam, and from that foam, Aphrodite was born. Okay, now Athena. Athena is the goddess of wisdom and strategic warfare. So one story about Athena is that Zeus actually swallowed her mother to prevent a prophecy which said that her mother would bear a daughter and then a son who would overthrow Zeus. She emerged from Zeus's temple after having fully grown, as she was immortal. her children comes out that way as well. So despite being a virgin goddess, she actually has children. The only other virgin goddesses are Artemis and Hestia. Next is Artemis. So as I mentioned, Artemis is a virgin goddess. One story about her is that she had a lover, Orion, who died because he boasted of killing every animal on earth, leading Gaia, who is basically the titan of earth, to send a giant scorpion to kill him. So Artemis actually turned Orion into a constellation, as well as that scorpion, to form the constellations Orion and Scorpio. Next is Apollo. Apollo is the god of light. So he's also the twin brother of Artemis. So one story about him is that in one version of Orion's death, he actually challenged Artemis to shoot a black sword that was very far away that turned out to be Orion's head. So he actually got his sister to murder the man she loved, supposedly because he was jealous. Next is Ares. Ares is the god of war. As I mentioned earlier, Aphrodite is actually married to Hephaestus, but she's actually unhappily married to him because Hephaestus is noted as a very ugly god. So she actually is known to cheat on him with Ares. So one thing about Ares is that he's portrayed as bad in a lot of things based on Greek mythology. But in actual Greek mythology, he was one of the few gods to never rape a woman, and he even killed someone when they raped his demigod daughter in some of the stories. So he's actually not as bad as many portray him to be. Next is Demeter. Demeter is the goddess of the harvest and fertility. She's actually the daughter of Persephone, who I already mentioned is Hades' wife who he had kidnapped. So after learning that her daughter was kidnapped by Hades, she actually asked Zeus to help her to save her daughter from Hades. So given that Persephone had eaten the 6 pomegranate seeds and was forced to stay in the underworld for half a year, she's actually the reason that the seasons exist, because during autumn and winter, she is so sad about her daughter leaving that she brings about the seasons, and during spring and summer, when her daughter is with her, she's happy, and thus she brings about warmth. Next is Hephaestus. Hephaestus is the god of blacksmiths. So one story about Hephaestus is that when he was born, Hera threw him out of Mount Olympus because she found him ugly, and he actually only married Aphrodite because Aphrodite was forced to marry him in exchange for Hephaestus releasing Hera from a magical throne that Hephaestus had made to trap her. Next is Hermes. Hermes is the god of travelers. So one story about him is that when he stole one of Apollo's cows, he gave Apollo the lyre, which he had made from a tortoise shell and axe hide, reeds, and sheep gut. Reeds were basically a writing instrument in ancient Greece and Rome, similar to the ballpoint pen, and Apollo loved the lyre so much that he instantly forgave Hermes. Next is Hestia. So Hestia is the goddess of the hearth and foam, and she's the guardian of the holy flame in Greek mythology. So she was actually one of the virgin goddesses that I mentioned earlier, and she actually refused marriage to both Poseidon and Zeus, who wanted to marry her. And so Zeus ended up marrying Hera, and Poseidon ended up marrying Aphrodite, who was the daughter of the Titan who originally ruled over the sea. Last but definitely not least, we have Dionysus. Dionysus is the god of wine. So something interesting about him is that he actually had a mortal mother and is the only Olympian god and actually only God to have a mortal mother. So his mother was actually incinerated after being tricked by Hera to ask Zeus to reveal his true form to her. And humans actually cannot see a god's true form, and so she died. After she died, Zeus actually stitched the still not fully formed Dionysus to his thigh, which made him actually a god.
And she was also the patron of prostitutes. The woman, Diana of the Mascara, was actually named after the Roman god Diana. Mars was also the mythical father of Romulus and Remus, who were the founders of Rome. Vulcan is said to have forged women of gold to help him. So, in a way, they represent two different types of people when they get drunk. So he is thought to have created humans from his tears. They search for revival like Osiris. She created a snake to poison the sun god Ra, eat their souls.